Hi there. Hi, this is welcome to McBoss Capital. My name is Michael Chu. You can always reach me at support@mcbosscapital.com. Today's session here is about when to hold or sell stocks. So just a quick disclaimer, all materials shown here are for informational purpose only. These are not investment recommendations and I'm not a registered investment professional. So here we focus on sharpening our skills. So what to buy, when to hold, and when to sell. Today we're going to look at related to both hold and sell, aggressive and passive short-term strategy. When it comes to aggressive sell strategy, especially when the stock is in the uptrend, um, you may sell per sell limit as the stock move up. And one possible way to do that is put at the lows. So for example, when the stock move up, this represent each day, and these are the lows and the high of the day trading range. So on the next day, you may want to put a sell limit on the previous low. So if it does come back to the previous low and undercut it, you may be able to sell and maybe take some profit there. Now, of course, this strategy will trigger quite often. So again, depending on what your stock is doing, how much profit you're making, you may employ this strategy. So we're gonna continue on last week's video where we talk about specific stocks, how to hold a stock during a strong uptrend. And today we're going to follow similar stocks, BioNTech and as well as Moderna, which we haven't talked about last week. Again, uh, just to touch back on what we talked about last time, as their stock is moving on an uptrend, you want to make sure the low, you're looking for down days to see if there's any weakness, and make sure the low is not lower than the previous up day's low. And the low is also there may be cases where the low is lower than the previous up day's low, but the volume is lighter. So those are good scenarios to have. Again, we will touch on the computer software security group to see how it's doing. Pretty much, we are also looking at the same trend. It's moving in an uptrend, and the low is, again, we're looking for those two things. The low is not lower than the previous update's low, and the low is lower than the previous update's low, but the volume is lighter. So those are two possible scenarios. So let me go into the chart right now. So here's a chart of the BioNTech, again, a vaccine maker for COVID-19. And we can see this really strong uptrend right now. And you can see the moving averages all moving upward. Now, uh, this is definitely a very strong uptrend. So again, in the last week, there was only one down day. And so we can look at that down day and you can clearly see this down day here, the low is not undercutting the previous upday's low. So this is an update and it didn't undercut it, right? And then the next day, you can see it tried to go to the lows, but it bounced back by the end of the day, right? So when we're looking at the daily chart, usually we look at each day as days goes on. And that's a good rule to have if you want to ride the trend. Again, if you do the aggressive selling, you could also do that as well to protect your gains. So everyone, depending on what kind of the way you trade, you could, like say, put a low here, but usually it does undercut the lows. But this stock is so strong that it hasn't quite done that yet. So right now it's sitting at, I believe last week was at 16% gain from this pivot point, $131, but now it's 36% from this pivot point. So that's another 20% gain in just 1 week. So that's a very strong uptrend. Again, you know, again, this is our short-term strategy. So obviously, if you want to hold true long-term, that's another different strategy. We're gonna jump to Moderna right now. So Moderna is also another vaccine maker for COVID-19. Um, because we didn't talk about it last week, let's just, quickly talk about the trend, the general trend. So same, they follow almost the same pattern as biotech in the long term. Basically, it goes up, since the COVID-19, pandemic, and it builds a base here, builds another base, move up, 87% in a very short time frame, build a base, and again, it failed to move up from here, and it broke down and built another base. So uh, that's the long-term trend. In the short-term trend right now, we are moving higher towards this pivot point. Um, and so that could be a buy point there. But if depending on how aggressive you are, you could have bought, one possible trend would be to buy. Sorry, let me just take away those markups for a second. Um, it could be, you know, again, if you draw a trend line here and breaks above that trend line, you could possibly buy somewhere here. Generally, I don't buy below the 50-day moving average, just because I like to see that it can power through that 50-day moving average. So you may buy somewhere here. Again, these are aggressive buy points. Um, but let's just say you are in it and you are trying to determine whether to hold this stock and when to sell. Again, you can look back at last week, and we'll start from I believe this is a Monday here. It did fall down. However, it didn't undercut the previous day's low. So the uptrend is still intact. But here we can see that it did undercut the second down day here. And if we go look at the volume, it is actually much lower, right? So this volume is much lower than this update. And notice how this volume here is quite high. So that's a good sign, meaning, not as many people want to sell uh, uh, on this day as compared to the update where more people buy. So, in terms of volume anyway. So the uptrend is still intact, and the short-term moving average here is the green line, which is 10-day moving average, and stocks love to pull back to that line on an uptrend. So it did bounce off, and then on Thursday you can see it hit a new high, recent high, and it pulls back again, right? Now, but again, it's very far away from the previous update's low. So that's another good sign. As you can see, on Friday it comes back and it make a new closing high. So those are good signs. So this uptrend is intact right now. Um, so let's jump to um, the computer security group. Um, and we're going to look at the group chart right here. So this is the computer software security group. And last week it was holding up pretty well. And so this was Friday on the 16th. Again, it didn't undercut that low, so that's what was, that's the good sign. Now on the next day here, Monday, it was a down day, and obviously you can see it undercut the update's low, and we're gonna go down on and look at the volume here. So you can see the volume. Uh, oops, sorry. On the next day here is quite low. So you can see the two red bars that are pretty low volume here, um, as it moves down, right? Now, those 2 days of volume are pretty low compared to the update previous. And again, it just shows that people are reluctant to sell. And so, even though the price is moving lower, um, now here on this update here on Wednesday, it did undercut the short-term moving average, but it did bounce back by the end of day. So that's another good sign. Um, and then now it's starting to progress upward through the rest of the week. Now, as far as the trend goes, it is still in an uptrend based on the observation I just mentioned. We're gonna go look at some stocks here. We did go through them, so just to see where they're at. So just remember the group chart. On the group chart, there they suffer 2 days of um, losses and then bounce back to 3 days, right? So um, when we look at the individual stock, they should follow the same pattern. So here on Cloudstrike, we are seeing that, again, we're seeing the same trend here. Monday and Tuesday are down. Now, first Monday, they didn't undercut. On Tuesday, it did undercut. And look at where the volume is. It's really, really low, right? It's definitely really low. And it did the same thing, bounced back the next day above it went undercut the moving averages here, and then it bounced back up. So again, the uptrend is intact here. So look at Okta. So Okta, we're seeing similar thing, 2 days. So here, lows are still there, are still above the previous update's low. And this one, it did go down below that low. And look at that volume here. They're really, really low, right? So again, these are signs that people are not willing to sell at this price, even though it did make a newer, lower price. Here it bounced back up on pretty high volume, average volume, and then it's moving upward again. So it's very near a buy point here. Um, so definitely something to watch out for. Um, we look at Paulo Auto. So this one, um, you can see it's kind of building a cup and handle base right now. So in the last week, it has keep making new lows. So this chart is definitely slightly different than the other charts, right? Now on the first down day on I believe this was a Tuesday, it the volume is lower, so it still seems okay. And then on Wednesday, the volume came in higher, right? Um, so that's not a good sign. So one thing I want to talk about here is the closing range. Where did it close on the day? And you can see in the little box here that show up, it says close range is 40%. So meaning it's 40% of the total range. So let me jump to the PowerPoint just to explain this a little bit here, right? So um, when you have a low and a high, where it closed can matter, right? Especially on a day like that day where higher volume came in. Um, Now, when it says 40%, it means that it closed at exactly at 40% of the range, right? Now, in most times, you want to see it close um, at the higher range. It just shows that more people are willing to buy at a higher price versus at a lower price. That's a good sign, but it's not always a key determinant in terms of whether you should hold or sell, but it just gives you another confirmation. So something to watch out for, but like I said, it's not necessarily a key determinant factor. So but just so here it closed at 40%, and let's just say, even though the volume came in higher, let's just say, it just meet the threshold there in terms of 40%, in the 60% on the lower 40%. So it's kind of neutral. Let's just say, we discount that day, and if you decide to hold on, you watch for another day, and here it make another low, and now the volume is still high compared to the previous update. And so you can see the close range this time is at 24%. So again, uh, people are willing to sell at this lower price. So definitely this one. So on Friday it did rebound, but but for this one, it does seem like it is a weaker chart, and based on the price as well. So you may not consider this stock. That's something, when you look at a group, you want to compare the chart to see which one's acting better. That will give you a better, probably give you a better outcome. The last one we're going to look at is Fortinet. So we did touch on this last week. It's just on a strong uptrend right now. It did pull back this week, and again, here it did undercut the low. But look at the volume; it's really, really low, right? Like super low. Then on Wednesday, uh, it went down lower, slightly lower, but again, you look at the volume, it's still lower than the previous update. And then on the Thursday, the volume came in, okay, but this time, notice where the close range is. It says, it says in that box right in the middle, close range 46%. So it means that it's, within the top 60%, right? So again, um, that rule, that 60-40% rule is not, concrete, but, it's just general sense of what most stocks do. If it's in the top half, it's usually even better. But now, but it's still not bad, 46%, meaning not everyone wants to sell at the lows. Um, and there's people willing to buy in the middle range, right? Now it's hard to say whether this stock will pick back up. Much like Paulo Auto, it is on the pullback right now. So again, um, it's not 100% concrete that generally when it drops on heavier volume than the previous update, and it make a new low, and it close at the bottom of the range, like near the bottom, that's usually a strong signal to sell. Um, uh, so so that's just another take on looking at when the stocks pull back, right? And generally, as you can see in both examples, this Fortinet and Palo Alto, it gradually pull back, right? It doesn't make a sharp drop right away. So these ones are much harder to, um, you know, decide whether you want to hold or sell. The other thing you may want to consider, again, uh, not a primary key determinant factor, but it can, for example, here the moving average is still sitting on the short term, above the short term moving average. So that's another consideration here, is that it's still holding up the strength because the moving average are just pausing here, flatlining a little bit, and it may continue to move up. So something to watch out for. And same thing with Palo Alto. It is still above. It did went below it, but it now bounced back up and is sitting at the moving average. So moving average are really key in terms of the trend. So follow that, and if it does break below it, it's definitely a sell signal usually because and combined with the other factors I mentioned. So thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to YouTube channel if you haven't. Give us thumbs up of this video if you like it. Contact us at support@bigbosscapital.com. If you have questions, like to share your thoughts, or you need help analyzing specific stock, we also provide educational and research service if you need help. Thank you very much.